We are three teachers from Roosevelt Middle School in Oakland, California, part of Oakland Unified School District. And we're just going to start by saying a little bit about ourselves and how we came to teaching and the context in which we have taught. So I'm Stephanie Mara, and I'm a sixth grade math teacher. I've been teaching for 9 years. And I started in the public school setting, ended up in a unique charter setting for a year. I spent 6 years in a small independent school in Berkeley, California, and then for the past 2 school years I've been here in Oakland Unified.
My name is Ashton Fauché. I am a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade special education math teacher. I came into teaching about 2.5 years ago through just thinking I liked kids, and I figured I might as well work with them, and it turned out to be the best thing I ever did for myself. So it is great. I love working at Roosevelt, and I love working in Oakland with the youth that we have.
My name is Catherine Bell. This is not even really the beginning anymore of my second full year of teaching. I got my credential at Cal State East Bay, and I worked briefly at a private school while I was doing that, a very strange one-on-one, one child to one teacher school. And then I student taught at Oakland International High School, which is a high school that's specifically for students who've been in the country for less than 3 years. So it's all English language learners, all recently arrived immigrants. As a student, I was there as a student teacher, and then I came here as a student teacher, and I've been here ever since. I teach sixth grade math as well, and I kind of always wanted to be a teacher. I tried a couple other things first, but when I was really thinking about what it was I wanted to do, teaching was the only thing.
Great. So we're each going to talk a little bit about aspects of being a warm demander in the classroom, because it's first seen as a best practice to both love and hold your students to high standards. So we're each going to talk about aspects of that in our teaching. And maybe Ashton wants to start by telling us a little bit about what has changed in her teaching practice over the 5 years, and maybe how she's moved amongst the quadrants of being a warm demander.
Yes, so my background, I've been working with kids. I'm 25 now. I've been working with kids since I was 13, so it's about 12 years, if I'm doing the math correctly.
Great job.
So from the beginning, I was more of, expect greatness and take nothing less, and no matter how you got there. So I was very much so, you guys can do this, you don't need that much help from me. And I didn't really have the big scope of, there's different abilities, because I was fortunate enough to grow up in a pretty well-off school district in Southern California, where most kids end up going to a 4-year university by the end of their education. So I have just been known to, all my teachers were pretty much just rigid, and one way, and there's one way only, and that's the only way you can do it. So that's how I grew up. So it's pretty hard to get out of that mentality. But then when I was able to come to Roosevelt or Oakland, I kind of developed more of a warm demander, where my students, although they are special needs students, I still teach them the same general education curriculum along with these two ladies with 6th grade. So we teach the same curriculum. I teach 6th grade standards as the same as Catherine and Stephanie do. I make sure that my students are given the same amount of work, but it's just a little bit more scaffolded with, helping color coding more, making sure that they understand what these keywords mean, since they are somewhere at a lower reading level, but they're still accessing the same material. And most of them are actually doing very well. So I'm very pleased with that. And being a warm demander has shown me that my kids can rise to the expectation that I have. A lot of the time I can have some, at the beginning of the year, some of my kids will try to test boundaries. And being a warm demander has been able to show my students that not only, do I care for them, but I expect the most out of them, just because they're students, not because of their disability or not because of their special needs.
But I'm just going to try to add a bit about sort of what communication looks like from a warm demander, or how I might communicate in a classroom to sort of level the playing field for all students. So I will say a lot of strategies that I have found to be meaningful and successful with my students have worked in both the independent school setting and the public school setting and the charter school setting, given that learners are learners, regardless of what school they're in. So a few things that I have always sort of valued and tried to embody in the classroom is the idea that students should feel safe in their learning. They should not experience any sort of fear, because that would be such an impediment to their learning. And they should know that their teachers really care about them. So I really try to embody that in just who I am as a teacher, regardless of who's in front of me. So my students know, and this doesn't work for all teachers. I think every teacher has to find kind of what their tone and their energy is. But for me, the perfect kind of warm demander tone is such that students know that they are both loved and held to high standards. Interestingly, since starting in public school, coming from an independent school, like Catherine said, our students have many needs and challenges that they face. And so before even entering the classroom on any given day, they've already faced a lot. And it has struck me, though, that they still deserve a high quality education. And in some ways, that is very freeing to a student to come to school to learn and actually maybe forget a little bit about some of the worries that they might have outside of school. And so it's just struck me even more so being in the public setting and in a lower performing school, just how much education is such a tool for social justice. And that sort of goes along with the warm demander idea, that we can't just love our students, we have to also hold them to high standards. So I would say the way that looks in terms of sort of communicating in a classroom setting is, for me, it's to never shame a student. Like, students should know that their voices really matter, whether they're struggling or they're the top of the class or they participate once a week or never. Like, their voice is valued, and making mistakes is okay, and sharing is great, and we're here to support each other. I try to communicate in a way that students feel like it's important that they're in class. So if a conflict arises or an issue comes up, we try to address it head on and make sure that student feels comfortable staying in the room and that they feel validated, they feel seen and supported by the students and the teacher that are in the room. I'm thinking of certain students in particular who might be viewed as sort of underperforming or not expected to do great. And I can imagine conversations I've had with them where I've said things like, I love you, but you have to do this assignment or you're never gonna get a good grade. Or, like chasing down a student who, sure, I could just say, oh, whatever, just go home. You didn't do any of your work, whatever. But I just think it's so much more meaningful to speak to them like everything they do really, really matters. Mm-hmm. Even though any little one assignment or whatever it is doesn't matter all that much in their learning. But for teachers to communicate like the things that you are doing in class really matter. You trying your best really matters. Doing that group project and sharing your idea, like, we need to hear your voice. I find that that's a way to kind of empower students, especially for those who have maybe not been told that their voice really matters and their ideas matter throughout their other educational experiences.
I think one thing that's been really important and that I meant to work in earlier is just not making any assumptions. It's easy to build an identity in any direction for your students, kind of in your mind. And then treat them accordingly. And that might not be what their identity is. And that not making assumptions comes in so many forms. I never tell my students to remind their parents of anything, because a lot of our students don't live with their parents. Mm-hmm. So I say families, because that kind of covers whoever you live with is probably,
family.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Tell your family we don't have school on Monday. Because and I mean it goes from there and then spreads out to lots of other assumptions that I don't want to make about what kind of situations, because even just that minor of a detail for a student who's recently lost a parent or
has a parent who's
incarcerated, or who has a parent who they don't know where they are, that can be a really traumatizing, even just to have someone say tell your parents we don't have school on Monday, can be triggering. And so just you kind of have to re-examine your assumptions about students in general, and then you have to re-examine your assumptions about students in whatever situation you're teaching, or whatever your stereotypes of the kinds of groups of students that you are working with are, and kind of get rid of those. They're of no use to you in the classroom. And you have to learn your students.
I would say, a few last thoughts came to mind about sort of embodying the warm demander way, with students, particularly academically. One is just to really celebrate even the smallest of successes, because that goes so far, particularly with a student who hasn't experienced as much success. It's amazing how one really good day or little participation comment that they make that is celebrated can really just set them on this trajectory, even though it seems so small.
Yeah.
So try to find those little moments. That has helped me a lot. And then something I'm still working on, but it does help a lot, is to remember that every day, even every minute, is a new opportunity for a student to grow and change. So I would say earlier in my career, I would get bogged down and sad thinking about, oh, this student, what if they don't improve, or just worrying about all my students. But I've gotten a lot better at just saying every day is a new day. It's a new chance for a student to have an aha moment. It's a new chance for maybe that one student who's never written a note all year. Maybe this is the day they're going to start writing notes, or they're going to start completing work. And to whether or not I actually believe it, I just tell myself that I know all my students can do it. And it's a form of trickery, but it really helps. So even though I know some of my students won't probably grow this year that much in math, I've accepted that, but I tell myself that they will. And when I interact with them, I convince myself this kid is going to grow. They are going to learn no matter what. And I think it comes across in the conversations. Just be constantly resilient no matter how hard it is. Like, okay, new day, we're trying it again, trying it again, trying it again.
Yeah.
Just every day, just, okay, new hope, we're trying it again.
Yep.
That's my closing thoughts.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, I think what Stephanie's saying is, if you believe it as the teacher, they're going to believe it. Because again, like I said before, we're everything in a bag of chips to these kids. And if you come into it and this kid could be at a kindergarten reading level, and you could be like, we are in 8th grade or whatever grade they're in. But if you come in every day and you're like, I know you can do this, they're going to think the exact same thing. And you have to maintain, it has to be consistent. You have to maintain that consistency. And I think that's really the key in getting kids to trust you, is being able to show them that you believe in them, therefore they should believe in themselves. Because a lot of the time there are people at home, or there are people in previous grades who have not believed in them. And that's where we come in to be like, no, you can do this. You may not get to the same point as student A over here, but you know what? I still think you are going to continue to succeed and thrive.